Hello everybody, my name is Ilya.
And my name is Tyler. Together we make up Kovray, a couple that loves to play board games.
And watching empires collapse. Now today we'll be doing a sponsored preview of Empire's End. Ba-bam!
A tragedy is struck.
Now this game is on Kickstarter, potentially right now. So you should click that link down below, check it out, and learn a little bit more about Empire's End.
Empire's End is published by Brotherwise Games. It's designed by John D. Clare, and the illustrations are done by Kwan Chai Maria.
In Empire's End, your empire will face many challenges. Disaster after disaster.
War after war.
Your role is to make the best of it.
Yep.
And essentially try to survive to the best of your ability so you can score the most victory points through your innovations and through persevering conflict by the end of the game.
Exactly.
Will you be able to do it?
Who knows? But without further ado, let's take a quick look at how this game plays.
As always, you'll begin by setting up. You'll place a churn board at the center of the table with the side corresponding to your player count. You'll put the resource tokens and exhaust markers in piles within reach of all players. Shuffle and place the disaster and conflict cards near the board as well. Each player will then receive a privacy screen, 2 orange disaster markers, 2 resources of each type, with coins being wild resources in this game, 11 locations, and 4 random cards from the top of the disaster deck. The first player will shuffle and randomly arrange their locations healthy side up. Every other player will arrange their locations in the same order as the first player. Each player will then place their point tracker on the board, and you're now ready to begin playing. Empire's End is played in phases. Each turn the hourglass marker will move, and every player will resolve the phase it moves to. You'll keep playing until the hourglass reaches the end. At that point, the player with the most points wins. Points in this game will be obtained from the conflict phases throughout the game, as well as healthy locations you have left at the end of the game and any innovations you've picked up along your journey attached to those healthy locations. Let's go over the phases you'll see. The most common is the disaster phase. During this phase, a disaster card is revealed threatening a specific location. Players will then take turns bidding resources depicted on the card to save their location tile. When a player passes and finally takes the card, they'll gain the accumulator resources with it and the first player token. Their location will be destroyed, however, they will be able to place the disaster card they've taken as an innovation below any of their healthy locations. We'll talk more about innovations shortly. In 3 to 4 player game, there will also be double disaster. They work the same way as a regular one, except you bid individually on each of the disaster cards on each of your turns. So it's possible to take them both in the same turn. Next up is the economy phase. All players will simultaneously activate all green abilities in their empire. These will often provide resources, convert resources, and refresh abilities of innovations. There are economy innovations as well, which allow you to obtain resources or victory points depending on adjacency of the innovation. Industry phase is next. During the industry phase, you're able to build 2 innovations from your hand. Each one will cost 1 hammer. However, if your towns are healthy, each provide a discount of 1 hammer, essentially letting you place 2 for free. Some innovations will have an extra cost of 1 hammer. Each town may only be used once per innovation, so in this case you'll always have to pay at least 1 hammer. Couple notes for placing innovations. They may only be placed under healthy locations. They also can only be placed in a location that has or is tied for the least innovations under it. What this means is players cannot place a second innovation in a location until all healthy locations at least have 1 innovation. Innovations provide a range of abilities that can be utilized at various phases. Many will score you victory points during and at the end of the game. Some will also be exhausted after use. You'll place exhaust markers to track this. Now, innovations are only active if the location is healthy though. If one has been destroyed, the innovations will remain on the card but will not be able to be used until the location is healthy again. If you don't want to build innovations or don't have the cards you want, you can exchange a card for a coin. You can do this up to 2 times per industry phase. In summary, you can build 2 innovations, get 2 coins from 2 cards, or do 1 of each. After this, you may optionally repair 1 destroyed location in your empire. Simply pay the hammers and flip it healthy side up. Lastly, in the industry phase, you'll complete any industry abilities. At the start of your game, your city will have one, allowing you to swap 2 locations on your board. Other abilities you'll acquire from innovations will give you discounts on adjacent repairs, allow you to move innovations rather than the whole location, and remove an adjacent exhaust marker, allowing you to use abilities on innovations again. The last phase we need to chat about is the conflict phase. During this phase, a conflict card will be revealed. First, all players will total the starting conflict based on their empire, looking at healthy locations and innovations. Everyone will then simultaneously and secretly bid axes and coins to engage in the conflict. Once revealed, everyone will compare their total axes to the amount on the card and gain victory points and other bonuses as indicated. The player with the most axes will also obtain the victory bonus at the top of the card. Finally, all players who do not have the highest total conflict strength will make the location swap indicated at the bottom of the conflict card. After all is done, all axes and coins revealed will be discarded back into the supply. You'll keep playing, swapping locations, gaining innovations, and working diligently to preserve your empire, as when the progress track reaches the final space, the game ends. You're now ready to calculate your final score. In addition to your point track, you'll add points from all your healthy locations and any victory points from end of game innovation. You'll compare your score, and the player with the most victory points wins. How well are you at handling disasters?
Well, with the overview out of the way, let's talk about some major highlights we want to point out about Empire's End. Starting with the obvious.
The art. Quancha Maria has done a phenomenal job with this game. The art in this game just draws you really into the Empire, and the cover really speaks for itself. Look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And then just diving a little bit further into this art, I want to speak more about the theme of this game. And it is really, honestly, about managing your disasters. And it's one of those games where you're like, my empire is literally falling to pieces, but I have to find this neat way of managing all of these disasters that come my way and successfully balancing that better than my opponent. And I think that's, or better than my opponents. I think that's really neat to have to try and figure out, but it fits so well with the theme and the art that is already existing in this game. I just think it's a job well done.
Flipping the tiles and seeing your locations just burn. It's a little bit satisfying, even though it's a negative thing for your points.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the tail end of that
recovering them, flipping them back. The cities, the locations, they're back to life.
Exactly. You as a emperor, dictator, maybe whatever you've decided that you are, have done a good job. Or maybe just the people have come together.
Peaceful democracy of people.
The people have come together and repaired the city, the roads, the farm, whatever it may be.
With hammers.
Exactly. It is a very fitting theme that leans into the mechanics, which is our next point that we probably want to highlight. Do you want to talk about them a little bit?
Well, the mechanics in this game are pretty straightforward. There's a lot of bidding back and forth, a little bit of secret bidding as well when it comes to the conflicts.
Right, yeah.
But what's wonderful too is it's simultaneous play, essentially. Because you'll be going through different phases in the game and all doing the same thing. So every player will be really engaged throughout each of their turns because everything that is happening affects them one way or another.
Exactly, yeah. You've got to use those cards that you end up, your disaster cards that you end up tucking underneath. You've got to use them to your best ability, and it almost feels, especially with the economy, like action sequence, that one feels more like of an engine buildy type thing, which is a nice little like add to the already existing mechanics.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of the engine building piece, especially the more innovations that you have, the more prosperous your city becomes, even if there's only a few locations left and many have burned down.
Yeah.
But this brings us to our first major highlight, and that is that it's a game of give and take.
So this game has a lot of tight decision making that you're going to have to go through. Obviously, because you're limited in the resources, and that is a huge element of your gameplay, you're going to want to strategically decide whether or not you want to take the disaster and flip over one of your tiles, or you're going to decide if you really want to just spend all your money or resources to not get rid of the tile that could potentially burn down. So it's this give and take, exactly the highlight that we want to make apparent.
And as the game progresses too, your locations will become different. So the disaster in effect can target your city, which is worth a lot of victory points, but maybe target somebody else's army, which is worth less. So that decision making becomes really tight because the person with the army is like, I want you to lose those 32 points. I don't want to give them to you.
Yep.
So there becomes a lot of these really interesting mechanics as well because your resources are also hidden. You never know. Like there was games where I would have nothing and Tyler wouldn't know, and then he'd take the disaster because he's like, he's gonna make me take this. It doesn't matter. I'm like, yes, I didn't take it. Woo!
Yeah, and then there was other points where I think I knew you didn't have as many resources as I did, so I pushed things to do exactly what Ilya was talking about and made him have to burn down his city or something like that, and those are worth a lot of points. The nice thing about this game too is you do see the progression of the rounds as you go through the game, so you know the disasters are coming, you know when you're going to have an industrial phase, an economy phase, and so on and so forth. But because you know, like early on, if you're landing on your city, you can prepare yourself to have to repair that by the end of the game and guarantee yourself those 32 points. And that can be some really smart gameplay, some strategy that begins to develop. But again, it is tight, and very, very like on the spot decisions that you need to make that depend and really push the game past those limits.
I think this is one of the few games where you're always losing something.
Yes.
You're not just sacrificing between one or two things, but your optimal state is essentially the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And although you can amp it up with innovations, it is really much trying to overcome disasters and make the best of it, which is definitely really interesting.
I think that brings us to our next major highlight, though, which would be every game starts the same for every person.
Love that in games. What it means is that every game looks really different too, because you shuffle those locations, and then based on the disasters that come out, locations being targeted are always different. But it's really interesting to watch everybody make the decisions, sacrifice various locations, build innovations on others, and see where their empires end when everyone started the same.
Nice. Empires End. I agree too, and it starts right off the bat too. So even if you have the exact same board when you start the game, that first round, that's where it all starts to change. Maybe you're able to shift your industries or your tiles when you hit that first industry phase. Maybe you're not. Maybe it doesn't work out for you. And you've got these disaster cards in your hand that could provide a lot of different mechanics to that engine you're possibly trying to build. So the variety of that game, the variety of that gameplay kind of shines right there at the beginning, and it's interesting to see it unfold.
And it's a great thematic twist as well, because essentially all of you started with the same empire, but because of your decision making and the sacrifices, maybe mine was a little bit more prosperous than Tyler's. Now our third highlight is strategy. Let's chat about it. In this game, there'll be many decisions that you can make, and each of the decisions will shape up the next decision, which gets really, really exciting. Not only are you sacrificing and bidding resources in each of the disaster phases, but you also have the innovations in your hand that you can plan around. If all of a sudden these two locations get burnt, maybe that's beneficial for me because I can put the innovation in between and score victory points because of it.
True. Yeah.
So there's a lot of planning you can do with the innovations in your hand, but also a lot of adaptability based on disasters that come up, because maybe an unfavorable situation becomes quite favorable in your favor.
Yeah, exactly. And you can do like all eggs in one basket, for example, where you allow yourself to burn a few of your bridges, and end up flipping over your tiles. So you get to tuck cards under tiles that are like safe to play under, but because you can't tuck tiles or tuck disaster cards underneath cards that are flipped and burnt, you limit yourself to those spaces, and you allow yourself to progress through being able to place multiple ones underneath each other to make that said set of cards and tiles worth more, or potentially
Stack
offer
of innovations.
more. Yeah, exactly.
Innovate away.
But there are, again, like Ilya is alluding to, a lot of different strategies you can base your game off of. You can take some heavy hits at the very end of start of the game to really drive your strategy forward, which is something I tend to lean into. I think what really helps me with this game in particular is that round tracker, so you're aware of what's going to be going on throughout the whole game, and you can kind of plan for a few turns ahead, but also for way later in the game, because it's already dictated about how those things are going to happen. You just then have to adapt to the disasters that are coming up and your limited resources that you have to yourself.
Now, our fourth highlight in this game is chatting about the rules, approachability, and accessibility. Now, this is one of those games that you can set up and just start playing.
Yep.
And say, okay, we're all doing the disaster phase. Now, this is how it works. We're all doing the economy phase. This is how it works. Of course, you can do a brief overview of what to expect in the game in the beginning, but this is one of those games that you can just learn as you play, and it just invites you in immediately. There's not a huge disadvantage to knowing a particular rule or having the whole rule book in the back of your head. You're there to really experience and adapt in the moment to make the best out of your disasters and situations.
And to that point, when it does come to understanding what the rules are, they are really straightforward, which helps lead to, again, that quick gameplay, leading to quick turns, and overall just like a fast-paced game that still has that grindiness to it.
And the iconography is really approachable. It's very easy to pick up on what things do after you have like a little bit of experience right away in the beginning of the game.
And there's not a lot of iconography, so not only is it simple to understand, it's easy to not get yourself flustered with everything that is going on, so it continues to add to that pace of game, which I think is something that a lot of people tend to look for.
And what makes my brain really happy particularly is that each of the innovations is also color-coded and has the tile of the phase that it affects. So you can kind of almost tune in of like, I'm just looking at the economy tiles this turn and see all of them process it, go on, keep going, keep doing the same thing. I like the way that that's really broken out. It makes my brain very happy.
So all in all, this game proves to be a game of tight decision making, a lot of strategy, simple yet deep gameplay, but also nicely paced so you're not feeling like you're at a table for too long.
Will your empires succeed above others? Will you be able to make the best out of your innovations? Only you'll find out. But if you want to learn more about this game, make sure to check out the Kickstarter down below. You can learn much, much more about this game and see it for all its glory on that page.
Let us know if you're going to check this one out. We've had some fun playing it, and we hope we provided some good insight into whether or not this type of game would be for you.
And if you have any questions around anything that you saw today or want to pick our brains a little bit more about our empires, just comment down below and we're happy to give you as much insight as we possibly can in this game.
I like how you said our empires, because it's like we own an empire, but I don't own an empire.
I own an empire.
Wow. I'm his empire. Haha! Just kidding. Lastly, let's jump into our question of the day, and I think this one is pretty funny, so I have to ask it. If you had an empire, or you were part of an empire, and it was to end in tragedy, how would you want it to end?
In tragedy?
I could give you an example.
Okay, start.
I don't think I would want to be the leader of this empire, but I would love it if my empire ended in a tragedy that was like the people rose up against these dictatorships or anything like that, but it was like a tough battle and there was a lot of stuff that was going on, burning, war, all of that, just to kind of get back to this point of very, very baseline things where we have to start all over and who knows what's gonna happen.
My brain went a completely different route.
Oh.
I don't know why, but it went to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, so my empire was just chocolate. And how it ended is everyone...
Climate change, it got too warm and
it
all
all
the chocolate melted.
No, I was gonna say everyone got allergies to chocolate, so they couldn't eat or be a part of the empire anymore. So just
they had to leave and start their own. That's cute.
So, but more uprisings, I guess, from the people.
Yeah.
But tell us about your empire. Is it fictional? Is it real? What is the disaster?
Is it real?
What is the disaster that is gonna come and take your empire away?
But
all in all, thank you so much for watching.
If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you're new here, because we make weekly content about videos, about board games that we love.
We make content about videos?
About board games.
It's a Tyler and Ilya react to ourselves video.
That's cringe. That's cringe. Anyways, if you do like this type of content, let us know down in the comments below. Be sure to answer that question of the day. And until next time, this is us hoping our empires don't end in complete tragedy.
Well, you're my empire, so I have to be careful now.
Oh.